So Matthew chapter 1, verse 17 is just an interesting verse to me, and I think there's so much more to this than what I'm aware of, but I'll just tell you a little summary of it and then my thoughts on it, and please comment if you've got more insight into it. So the 17th verse of the first chapter of Matthew goes on to say that from the time of Abraham to David, there's 14 generations listed in this genealogy. There's actually more. That was not all inclusive. They might skip, it might go from a grandfather to a grandson and so on in that genealogy. But there's 14 generations that they mention. And then from the time of David to the exile to Babylon, there's 14 generations. And then from the time of Babylon to the Messiah, there's 14 generations. So we've got 4 events, 3 sets of 14 generations in between those events. And so the first thing that came to my mind was just that numbers and symmetry are very important to God. I find it interesting that the first 2 chapters and the last 2 chapters of the Bible are sinless chapters, that it's before sin and then after sin was taken care of. And I know the chapters came later, but that just tells me that it was about the same that God spent giving us an explanation of a sinless environment. And then we know that just numbers are important to God because 7 is a number that shows up often, a number of completion. The Trinity is 3. There's 4 Gospels. There's 12 disciples, 12 tribes of Israel. 666 deals with the Antichrist, the mark of the beast, and I find it interesting that it really, you can really take it down to 3 and 4. There's 4 events here, 3 groups of genealogies in between those events. And if you add 3 and 4 together, you get 7. If you multiply 3 by 4, you get 12. So I really think 3 and 4 are just very important to God. So the first point being, numbers and symmetry, I believe, are very important to God, and it shows up in this verse. The next thing is, if you take these events of Israel and you switch them over to a Christian, I think we'll see something neat, because Abraham, he is the physical birth of Israel. David is the physical success of Israel. The exile is the despair of Israel. And then the Messiah is the spiritual birth in Israel. And so I think, a Christian kind of follows that same pattern. We have a physical birth. We experience some physical success in life. Even if it's small, we're living our life. We're figuring things out. We're growing up and becoming somebody. And then we experience despair. And I think most people, well, I'd say all people, they experience some little level of despair before coming to Christ, and Christ being the last one. So I think we just follow that pattern of physical birth, physical success, despair, and then spiritual birth. And so my question for you is, if you're a believer, do you see that in your life? And if you haven't accepted Jesus Christ in your life, you've experienced a physical birth, you've experienced physical success to some degree. Have you experienced physical despair? Are you happy with life? And I know it's going to sound weird to you, but I hope you get to the point, if you haven't accepted Jesus as your Savior, that you get to a level of despair where you're not happy. Because I don't want you to be happy without Jesus, because it's a false happiness. And I want you to get to that point where you would be ready to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. And I know it sounds weird, but I want you to be discontent with this world, because everything that you think is making you happy now is going to end. And I want you to find the eternal happiness, the eternal peace and joy you can have in accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.